live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where these angry protests have been taking place. But Dan, it does now appear it's pretty much a cat and mouse game, it seems, between the police and the remaining protesters on the streets.
Well, things are definitely calm now in downtown Albuquerque, but you walk around and these are some of the remnants on the street. This is an empty canister of pepper spray. We saw police employing that tactic just a short time ago to try to get crowds to calm down, if you will. I mean, you had hundreds to begin with. Then as the police pushed the protesters down the street in the middle of the main thoroughfare in downtown Albuquerque, you had the crowds begin to disperse, but quite a chaotic situation all evening. This really began when you had a group of protesters break through a barricade that police had set up to prevent protesters from going in the convention center where Donald Trump was giving his speech. They got close to the door, but police in riot gear kept them at bay. And from there, I have to say, things quickly descended into chaos. You had protesters, as you said, throwing rocks and bottles at police. Police were showing remarkable restraint with these protesters, basically hoping that things would calm down, but things only escalated. They went to a main thoroughfare a couple of blocks away. Some were bouncing on police cars. You can see they were lighting things on fire, and things were just completely out of control. And then police started using pepper spray. They started firing tear gas canisters into the crowd, and ultimately that seemed to do the trick to get these crowds to go home. But quite a scene. This is not what we expected when we first got here this afternoon. We saw well over 1,000 anti-Trump protesters congregating. This was a peaceful protest when Donald Trump came into town. Then as you had nightfall, mainly young people, not clear if they were part of that original protest team. Police say they weren't. They were just troublemakers, but clearly they caused quite a scene here in Albuquerque. John, Aisha?
Yeah. And Dan, you were out there for most of this, or all of it. Were you able to speak to anyone, any of these protesters? I mean, what were you able to hear? What did they say to you?
Well, they were shouting, negative things about Donald Trump. Some of them were using vulgarities, to be quite honest with you. They were holding offensive signs and just trying to get their message across. I mean, keep in mind that New Mexico has the highest percentage of Latinos in the nation. So in terms of the original anti-Trump protest, you had a lot of folks who were peacefully protesting Donald Trump's rhetoric when it comes to illegal immigration. Also talking about some of Trump's comments about women. Again, they were peaceful protesters. And then once you had that initial breakdown of the barricade and they rushed the convention hall, that's when things sort of took a drastic turn. And, if they were troublemakers or if they were part of the anti-Trump protest, not really clear. But as the night wore on, clearly they weren't part of the original protest team. These were people who were just wanted to cause trouble, again, burning things and throwing things at police officers. That was not democracy. That was not a peaceful protest. That was ugly, and police really did what they had to do to bring the crowd under control.
Dan, do we know at this point if any arrests have been made? Because we know one person was arrested inside the convention center who was escorted out and arrested. But what about outside? Has anyone been taken away?
I was surprised that, throughout the evening, I personally did not see a single person arrested all night. And police certainly had ample cause to arrest quite a few people. I mean, they saw in plain sight some of these people who were throwing rocks, and they could have arrested them, but for whatever reason, they didn't. And so that was a bit surprising, I have to say.
Okay, Dan, thank you. Dan Simons, please stay with us. Dan Simon there on the streets of Albuquerque.